The gavel hadn't even touched the bench when Marcus Rivera knew he was walking into a trap. The courthouse doors felt heavier than they should have, and the marble floors echoed with the sound of expensive shoes that didn't belong to him. He adjusted the worn leather jacket that had seen better decades and gripped the manila envelope that held everything he had left to fight with. Courtroom 4B was smaller than he'd imagined, but the air was thick with the kind of tension that made people whisper and lawyers smile. The defense table felt like an island in hostile waters. No briefcase, no legal team, just an old soldier and a folder that contained more truth than anyone in that room was prepared to handle. The opposing counsel was already positioned like a predator. Attorney Jennifer Walsh had the kind of confidence that comes from never losing, never doubting, never meeting someone who couldn't be broken down into billable hours. Her charcoal suit was pressed to perfection. Her smile was calculated to intimidate, and her reputation for destroying pro se defendants was legendary in family court circles. "Your Honor," she began before Marcus had even settled into his chair, "I want to address the elephant in the room. Mr. Rivera has chosen to represent himself today in what is clearly a complex custody matter involving substantial assets and international complications. While I respect his right to self-representation, I must note for the record that he appears to be operating under several misconceptions about both the law and the facts of this case." She paused, letting her words settle like dust on everything Marcus hoped to accomplish. "Furthermore, given Mr. Rivera's documented history of PTSD and his recent financial difficulties, I believe the court should seriously consider whether he is mentally competent to make decisions that will affect not only his own future, but the welfare of a minor child." The judge, Honor Patricia Chen, looked up from her files with the kind of expression that suggested she'd already made up her mind about how this morning would go. The courtroom gallery was sparse, a few court watchers, a bailiff who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else, and in the back row, Marcus's ex-wife Sarah with her new husband, both watching like spectators at a demolition. Marcus didn't respond to the attack. Not yet. He'd learned in 3 tours through Afghanistan that the enemy always reveals their strategy before they reveal their strength. He opened the envelope with steady hands and placed 2 items on the table in front of him. A bronze star with V device for valor, still in its original presentation case, and a letter that was about to change everything in that room. But first, he had to let them finish destroying him. "Mr. Rivera," Judge Chen said, her voice carrying the weight of impatience, "you are seeking joint custody of your daughter Emma, age 12. The petitioner has presented evidence of your unemployment, your recent eviction, and medical records indicating ongoing treatment for post-traumatic stress disorder. Do you have legal representation?" 1. "No, Your Honor, I do not." "And you understand that custody decisions are complex legal matters that typically require professional counsel?" "Yes, Your Honor, I do." Attorney Walsh stood again, her movement sharp and practiced. "Your Honor, if I may continue with our presentation of evidence." She clicked open a leather portfolio and began laying out documents like she was building a case against a war criminal. Bank statements showing overdraft fees, medical records with words like severe PTSD and adjustment disorder highlighted in yellow, photos of the small apartment where Marcus had been living before the rent increase forced him out. "Mr. Rivera has been unable to maintain stable housing for 8 months, Walsh continued. His treatment records show missed appointments, inconsistent medication compliance, and episodes of what his therapist describes as emotional dysregulation. The child in question, Emma Rivera, has expressed concerns to her mother about her father's unpredictable behavior during their supervised visits." Each word was a precision strike, designed to paint the picture of a broken man who couldn't be trusted with his own daughter. The gallery murmured softly. Even the bailiff shifted uncomfortably. Marcus felt the familiar tightness in his chest, the same sensation he'd experienced under mortar fire in Kandahar. But this time, he wasn't pinned down by the enemy. This time, he had ammunition they didn't know about. "Your Honor," Walsh said, building to her crescendo, "while we have sympathy for Mr. Rivera's military service and the challenges he faces as a veteran, we cannot allow sentiment to override the best interests of the child. Emma needs stability, consistency, and a guardian who can provide both emotional and financial security. The evidence clearly shows that Mr. Rivera, despite his good intentions, is simply not capable of providing the environment this child deserves." She sat down with the satisfied expression of someone who had just closed an open and shut case. The judge made notes. The gallery waited for the inevitable ruling. Even Marcus's ex-wife looked like she felt sorry for him. "Mr. Rivera," Judge Chen said, Do you have anything to present to the court before I make my ruling? Marcus stood slowly, not because he was nervous, but because he wanted everyone in that room to see him clearly. He reached for the letter first, the one that had been gathering dust in his apartment for 6 months, unopened until this morning. Your Honor, I'd like to submit this for the court's review. The bailiff took the letter and handed it to Judge Chen. She glanced at it briefly, then did something Marcus had been hoping for. She stopped. Her eyes moved back to the top of the page, and she read it again, then a third time. The room began to feel different. This letter, Judge Chen said slowly, is from Lieutenant Colonel David Hassan, commanding officer of the 1st Battalion, 87th Infantry Regiment. It's dated 6 months ago. She looked up at Marcus, then at Attorney Walsh, who was suddenly paying very close attention. Mr. Rivera, the judge continued, according to this letter, you were recently awarded the Bronze Star Medal for valor during combat operations in Afghanistan. Lieutenant Colonel Hassan writes that your actions during an enemy ambush on the 15th of March, 2023, directly saved the lives of 4 fellow soldiers and 12 Afghan civilians who had been caught in crossfire. The murmur in the gallery wasn't dismissive anymore. It was something else entirely. He goes on to say, Judge Chen continued, that despite suffering shrapnel wounds and a concussion during the engagement, you maintained command of your unit and coordinated the evacuation of wounded personnel while under continuous enemy fire. Attorney Walsh was no longer smiling. Your Honor, while Mr. Rivera's military service is commendable, it doesn't address the current concerns about his fitness as a parent or his ability to provide stable housing and care for his daughter. Marcus reached for the second item on the table. The Bronze Star case opened with a soft click that somehow seemed louder than all the legal arguments that had come before it. The medal caught the fluorescent lights, and suddenly everyone in the courtroom was looking at something they'd never seen before. Permission to address the court, Your Honor? Judge Chen nodded. Marcus's voice was steady, clear, and carried the authority of someone who had faced down death and come home to tell the story. Your Honor, 6 months ago, I was leading a convoy through Helmand province when we came under attack from a reinforced Taliban position. My vehicle took an IED hit. My driver was unconscious, and we had 12 civilians, including 3 children, trapped in a building that was about to be overrun. He picked up the medal, not to show it off, but to remember. I made a choice that day. I could have called for air support and eliminated the threat in 30 seconds. It would have been the safe play, the by-the-book play. But those 12 civilians would have died. Those 3 children would never have gone home to their families. The courtroom was completely silent now. Even the court reporter had stopped typing. Instead, I took 3 soldiers and we went building to building, room to room, for 6 hours. We cleared that position with small arms and determination because sometimes the right choice isn't the safe choice. Sometimes being a protector means putting yourself between the people you love and the things that want to hurt them. He placed the medal back in its case and closed it gently. Attorney Walsh is right about one thing. I don't have stable housing right now. The rent on my apartment went up by $600 overnight, and my disability check doesn't cover it. She's also right that I have PTSD. Some nights I wake up thinking I'm still over there. Some days I struggle to remember that the war is over. Marcus looked directly at his ex-wife for the first time since entering the courtroom. But Emma is my daughter, and if I can spend 6 hours in hell to save 12 strangers, I promise you, I will spend the rest of my life making sure she never doubts that her father is someone she can count on. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small, worn photograph. A little girl with bright eyes and her father's stubborn smile, standing in front of a Christmas tree. Emma gave me this picture before my last deployment. She wrote on the back, "Come home safe, Daddy. I need you here." Well, I came home, Your Honor. And she still needs me here. Judge Chen looked at the photograph, then at the medal, then at the letter from Lieutenant Colonel Hassan. When she finally spoke, her voice had changed completely. Attorney Walsh, I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to think very carefully before you answer it. In all your years of practice, have you ever represented a parent who has demonstrated the kind of courage and selflessness under extreme circumstances that we've just heard described? Walsh opened her mouth to respond, but nothing came out. Let me ask you another question, Judge Chen continued. If you were in danger, real, immediate, life-threatening danger, and you could choose anyone in this courtroom to come help you, who would you choose? The person with the perfect credit score and the stable housing situation, or the person who has already proven they'll run toward danger to protect people they don't even know? The silence in the courtroom was deafening. Marcus sat back down, not because he was finished, but because he had said everything that needed to be said. The bronze star sat on the table between him and the judge, like a bridge between two different understandings of what it means to be worthy. Judge Chen looked at her notes, then at Marcus, then at Attorney Walsh, who was frantically whispering with her client. "Mrs. Rivera," the judge said, addressing Marcus's ex-wife directly, "I understand your concerns about your ex-husband's current living situation, but I want to ask you something as well. In all the years you were married to this man, in all the time he was deployed and facing dangers you and I can't even imagine, did you ever, even once, doubt that he would move heaven and earth to keep his family safe?" Sarah Rivera looked at her hands, then at her new husband, then at Marcus. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "No, Your Honor, I never doubted that." "Mr. Rivera," Judge Chen said, "I'm ordering immediate joint custody, with alternating weekends, and shared decision-making authority. You have 60 days to secure appropriate housing, during which time supervised visits will continue. But let me be very clear about something." She leaned forward, and her voice carried the weight of absolute authority. "This court recognizes that stability comes in many forms. Financial security is important, but character is irreplaceable. Emma Rivera doesn't just need a roof over her head. She needs a father who will teach her that some things are worth fighting for, that courage isn't the absence of fear but action in spite of it, and that real strength sometimes means admitting you need help." Judge Chen closed her file and looked directly at Marcus. "Mr. Rivera, you've already proven you're willing to sacrifice everything to protect people who needed you. Now I'm giving you the chance to do it again. Don't let her down." The gavel came down, but this time it sounded like victory. As the courtroom began to empty, people didn't just leave. They moved slowly, like they'd witnessed something they needed time to process. A few approached Marcus directly, a handshake here, a nod there, a whispered, "Thank you for your service," that actually meant something this time. Attorney Walsh packed her briefcase without looking at anyone and left through the back exit. Sarah Rivera walked over to Marcus, with tears in her eyes. "She misses you," she said quietly. "Emma, she misses her daddy." Marcus nodded, his throat tight with emotions he'd been holding back for months. "I miss her too, every single day." Outside the courthouse, Marcus sat on the same bench where he'd waited that morning, but everything felt different now. The bronze star was back in his jacket pocket, the letter was folded carefully in his wallet, and for the first time in months, he had hope. His phone buzzed with a text message from a number he didn't recognize. "Mr. Rivera, this is Lieutenant Colonel Hassan. Heard about your court case through the grapevine. There's a veteran housing program I think you should know about. Call me when you're ready." Marcus smiled, not the bitter smile of a man who'd been beaten down by life, but the quiet smile of someone who remembered what it felt like to win a battle that actually mattered. Some medals are earned in war. Others are earned in courtrooms, in custody hearings, in the quiet moments when a father refuses to give up on the person who needs him most. Emma would be proud of this one too.